we all excited to be here? Come on, yes, we're all excited. It's very exciting. Thank you. Well, I have the great pleasure of introducing you guys to Mona Hanna-Attisha, who is a former Kimball High School graduate. She is now a pediatrician, a professor, and a public health advocate. Her research exposed the Flint water crisis that we are all very well aware of. She's the author of a 2018 book titled What the Eyes Don't See, which the New York Times named as one of the 100 most notable books of the year. Please give Dr. Mona a warm ROHS welcome.
Great to be back here. It's great to be back on this stage. I actually was in drama club. Who does drama? Yes, drama peeps. Yeah. So I did like backstage and light and props and was in some of the plays. Never a good singer, but a good actor. So it's great to be here. It's great to be here with all of you. You know, like was mentioned, this is. I was one of you. I sat in those chairs, bored out of my mind, listening to guest speakers, walking these same hallways, trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do with my life. So I'll tell you a little bit of kind of my path, and I would love to leave some time for you all to ask questions about what it was like when I was here, or my career, or any question that you would like. So I came to Royal Oak Schools in high school. I went somewhere else for middle school. I didn't know anybody. I knew nobody when I started here. And I got involved in lots of different things. I was in the school paper. Anybody doing the school paper? What is the school paper called? It used to be the Herald. Acorn, awesome, very fitting for Royal Oak. So I was the editor of the school paper. I did the yearbook. I did drama. I was really involved in our environmental club. Is anybody involved in the environmental club? Nobody? Somebody? One person back there cares about the earth over there. So back then, the environmental club was called SEE, Students for Environmental Awareness. And when we were in the environmental club, we met at the Awesome Media Center, which had just opened. And the advisor of the environmental club was the librarian. And she was originally from New York, and she was like kind of a little activist. And we did really cool things in class. Like in the club, we recycled cans, and we put up signs to tell people to save the earth, and we even put on plays for the elementary schools here, like Jane Addams and Star. I don't think Star's around anymore in Churchill. And I used to always play Mother Earth. It was really cute. But then our environmental club leader in high school found out that in a neighboring city, Madison Heights, right? You guys have been to Madison Heights, like Oakland Mall, not that far away from here. There was an incinerator that was about to reopen. An incinerator is this giant structure that burns garbage and pollutes the environment. And that incinerator in Madison Heights was in the backyard of an elementary school. It was right next to a senior center. And when that incinerator was operating for years and decades, people would wake up and there was a layer of black soot on their cars. And kids who lived around there had higher rates of asthma. And older folks couldn't breathe that good because of this trash burning incinerator. So our high school environmental club leader, she's like, hey, we're doing some really cool stuff here in the high school, but do you guys want to shut down an incinerator? And we're like, okay. So we got involved as students, and we protested, and we wrote letters, and we went to community organizing meetings in high school. To try to shut down an incinerator that was right in an adjacent city. And oh my goodness, we won, we did it. We elected a state rep from our little high school group. And the very first thing he did when he got to Lansing, to the state capitol as a legislator, was to pass a law that you couldn't operate an incinerator within a certain radius of a school. Remember, it was in the backyard of an elementary school. So this all happened when I was in high school. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. Like, you know, the environment, what happens in the environment is connected to people's health, and wow, the power of like being a young person, being able to raise your voice, people actually do listen. And that, wow, you know, good government, like if you elect good people, they can really protect you and take care of not only the environment, but also people's health. So that all happened in high school. I went on to be further involved in our environmental club here. I was the president of our senior class, which I don't know how that happened. And then I stayed connected to so many of my friends in high school. And I made friends with all kinds of different people. You guys are blessed to have such a diversity of classmates, and every single one of you brings amazing strengths and assets to conversations. So flash forward, I graduated here, and I'm not going to tell you the year because it was a while ago. I went to University of Michigan for college, and I studied environmental science, environmental activism, environmental health because of what happened here in high school. And then I went to medical school because of that connection between the environment and health. And then I ended up in Flint as a pediatrician. And you guys, you know, it's been a while, but who's heard of the Flint water crisis? Okay, good, almost everybody. So I'm going to do a quick recap of what happened in Flint and also connect it to my high school matters. So I am a practicing pediatrician in Flint. Yesterday I was in clinic all day taking care of kiddos. Still am. And in 2014, Flint changed our water. We changed our water from the Great Lakes. So Michigan, here's Michigan. Flint is about an hour north of here. And what is Michigan surrounded by, guys? What are we surrounded by? The Great Lakes, right? The Great Lakes, you guys win extra credit for all of you. The Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes is the largest source of fresh water in the world. 21% of the fresh water in the world is around the Great Lakes. And here's Flint, kind of in the middle of the largest source of fresh water in the world. And for half a century, Flint was getting its water from the Great Lakes, like so many communities in Michigan do. But in 2011, Flint lost democracy. You're like, well, what is she talking about? In 2011, the state took over the city. And we were under the control of emergency managers. And that was happening throughout the state, and it was happening in a lot of majority-minority cities. So in a lot of cities where the population was largely minority folks, that the state was taking over the cities. It happened in Detroit, it happened in Benton Harbor, it happened in Pontiac. And at one point, half of Michigan's African-American population didn't have democracy. They were under emergency managers, and that's not right. We've all taken government history. That's not how America's supposed to run. We're supposed to elect people. We're supposed to be able to hold them accountable. So this crazy law that was put into place against the will of the Michigan people was taking over our cities and making decisions that were based on saving money. So they decided that the water that Flint had been getting from the Great Lakes for a long time was now too expensive for this predominantly poor and minority community, and that they would change our water to the Flint River to save money. So that happened in 2014, and that's when the kind of disaster started. Our water was, do you guys remember watching TV? The water was yellowish and greenish and brownish, and it tasted funny, and people were getting skin rashes, and there was all these complaints about the water. And they would be telling government officials, like, hey, this water is making my kids sick. And the government officials were like, oh, everything is okay. There's nothing to worry about. Who knows what Flint was famous for like 100+ years ago? Like, what was Flint the birthplace of? What's Michigan really well known for?
Cars!
Cars, right there. So Flint was the birthplace of cars. General Motors was actually born in Flint. There's still some plants in Flint, and shortly after our water switch was made, one of the car plants in Flint noticed that this water was corroding car engine parts. Like, can you believe that? Drinking water was corroding car parts. And throughout this whole time, the people of Flint were told to relax and everything was okay. And so, and for a year and a half, there was all these reassurances that everything was okay. But you guys all know it wasn't. The water wasn't being treated properly. It was missing this really important ingredient called corrosion control, which made the water really, really corrosive, which meant that the plumbing, the metal that was in the plumbing, came out of the plumbing, went into the drinking water, and went into the bodies of our kids. And what toxic metal went into our drinking water? Who knows? Lead. So is lead a good heavy metal or a bad heavy metal? Bad. So do you guys know, what did we used to put lead in? What were things that lead was in? Okay, awesome. So paint, we put lead in paint. We put lead in gasoline. You guys, many of you probably drive now. You get, or maybe some of you have electric vehicles, but one day soon all of you will. But you get unleaded gasoline. We used to put lead in gasoline. We put lead in paint. We put lead in plumbing. Lead is still in bullets. It's in fishing tackle. But lead is a poison. It has no safe level. It's not supposed to be in our body, unlike many other heavy metals, which are like nutrients. Like we need copper and we need some of these other heavy metals. And when kids get exposed to lead, it messes up their brains. It messes up how they think and how they act. And it can really alter their health for a long time. So this is the part of the story. I'm going to go back to the high school part. So I was working as a pediatrician for a year and a half after the water switch, telling my patients that everything was okay. Telling my patients that all the folks in charge, all the government officials, all the scientists, telling them that they're all saying everything is okay, so everything must be okay. And that all changed for me when a high school friend came over for dinner. So my good friend Elin, we were classmates. She was the class valedictorian, super smart. Because of that environmental work we did in high school, she went on to be an environmental engineer. And she worked in Washington, D.C. She worked for the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and she had just come back to Michigan to be closer to her family, and we were having dinner together. And we were hanging out, we were talking about Royal Oak, we were talking about high school, we were talking about our kids and what's happened since then. And she's like, hey Mona, you work in Flint, and they're not treating the water properly in Flint. And without that, without that proper treatment, there's probably going to be lead in the water. So it was my high school girlfriend who happened to be back in town, who was the very first person to tell me about the possibility of lead and this poison being in the water. So most important lesson that I hope I impart to all of you is stay connected to your friends. Stay connected to your classmates. You never know. I know you guys want to all go away and get out of here as quickly as possible, but you never know who you will need to lean on in the future to help you. And when my high school classmate told me that there was lead in the water, that prompted me to do research to see if that was getting into our kids, which it was. Publicly sharing that research. There was more lead in the blood of our kids. I shared that research, and the state attacked me. They said, you don't know what you're talking about. They said, you're wrong. They said, you are an unfortunate researcher. They even said I was hysterical, and that is a sexist word that has been thrown against many women over time. So at that moment when all these really high up government officials said I was wrong, I felt like this big. I felt tiny. I felt defeated. I felt like maybe I was wrong. I began to second guess myself because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like barely 5 foot tall. I'm a brown first generation immigrant woman going against some of the most powerful people in our country. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut and my eyes closed and gone about my busy business. Maybe I shouldn't have spoken out against this injustice that was happening to kids in my community. So fortunately, those feelings did not last, and I quickly kind of reminded myself that these attacks really had nothing to do with me, but this had everything to do with kids in my community, and that kind of grounding in my why and in my passion enabled me to kind of keep fighting with science and with stories, with being loud and being persistent. And then finally the state conceded, and the water crisis was exposed, and since then we have been on this path to recovery. And I get to spend my every day making sure that the kids in Flint have the brightest future possible, but also being a national advocate, making sure that we do a better job protecting kids all over, not just from environmental things, but from a lot of things that make it really hard for kids everywhere to be healthy and successful. So I just want to reiterate that, you know, a lot of that, you know, I wrote a book. My book is very much kind of like a play-by-play of what happened in Flint, but it's also, I couldn't tell you what I did in Flint without telling you more about like who I was. So it has a bit of my life story, how I grew up in Royal Oak, and how I used to bike to raise ice cream, and how you know, I was used to hang out in downtown Royal Oak when it was not even cool. Like all there was like raw leather, and now it's like a really cool place. So a lot of who I am is because of this place, because of my teachers, because of my mentors, because of my classmates. I do a lot of speaking. People are like, we didn't think doctors knew how to talk. And I'm like, well, I wonder like why I became comfortable talking. And it was because of the stage. It was because of drama club that I became comfortable projecting and talking and taking risks. It was here that I learned how to be an advocate and organize and be a leader. It was here that I took hard classes that I didn't think I would do good in, like AP chemistry and all these like advanced classes that like, I don't know, this seems hard, but I'm gonna try it. I took a medical skills class. It was my very first exposure to healthcare, and that kind of was one of the reasons I went on to do medicine. So take advantage of the amazing opportunities that you have here. It is only kind of with this power of reflection when you can look back on your career, your life, can you really connect the dots and realize how amazing all these different experiences and how foundational they are to where you are now. There's a great quote that I love by Steve Jobs. It's about connecting the dots. He says, only when you look back on your life are you able to connect the dots of what seem to be seemingly disconnected experiences that all kind of came together. So you have to trust in something, in your gut and karma and something to know that all of these things will eventually make sense in the future. So I'm happy to stop talking, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about anything that I talked about medicine, healthcare, growing up here, being an author, whatever you want to talk about. I wish some of my former teachers are here, but I don't think anybody's here left, so that's sad. But I'm happy to talk about anything. If anybody has any questions, we'll call on you. Somebody has a question. Can you stand up? And I'll repeat your question.
So you talked about being an advocate, and I was wondering how you felt about the marijuana plant going up 88 feet from OTEC because it's against state law. It said it has to be 1,000 feet. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Okay, so the question was how I felt about the marijuana plant going up next to OTEC at 88 feet next to OTEC, and I guess it has to be 100 feet. This is the first I've heard about this. I don't know anything about that. I am happy to look into it and respond. So I have no idea. And not knowing is a really important skill to have. Recognizing that you don't always have the answers to everything. Other questions? Yes. Yes, so the question was, do I have any advice for people hoping to go into public health? So public health, people didn't really used to know about public health, and now it is actually the fastest growing undergrad major in the country. It was never an option for people. A lot of people who went into medicine because they wanted to help people actually probably should have went into public health. The medicine, healthcare is taking care of one person at a time. Very much kind of individual patient care. Healthcare is also very much a sickness-based system, taking care of people once they're already sick. We spend a lot of money in this country, the most of any other country, on health care. Public health is kind of the opposite. Public health is our ability to keep people healthy. Public health means strengthening things like environmental laws, supporting families, working at health departments, doing policy work, taking care of a population of people, not just one person at a time. So I'm super excited that public health is now a career opportunity that so many people are exploring, because it was kind of unknown before. The pandemic has also really exposed people to what public health is. Public health folks are like epidemiologists, and they're health policy scientists, and some of them do research, and some of them are in government. So there's many, many options of what you can do if you want to work in public health. The neat thing about public health is everything is your lane, and you get to work with all kinds of different people. So I run something called at Michigan State University called the Pediatric Public Health Initiative, and it is a merger of medicine and public health. And when I was just in the world of medicine, all of my colleagues were doctors, which is okay, but kind of boring. But now that I work very much more in public health, my colleagues are geographers and social workers and teachers and psychologists and organizers and pastors and all kinds of different people. So in public health, your tent is bigger. And you can do lots of different things. So yay for careers in public health. There's lots of options, not only in direct service but also very much as an academic. Other questions?
Do you have any advice for women going into science fields?
Yes, great question. Do I have any advice for women going into science fields? And I'll make this more about really women going into any field that are traditionally not male fields. A lot of kind of what happened to me during my kind of what I went through. A lot of the attacks were really also gender-based, and I think as a woman, there was also this sense of imposter syndrome, which also a lot of women feel when they're in these professions or careers that are dominated by men. And what I would advise to women out there, and what I've kind of leaned on throughout my career, is use that as your superpower. Me being a woman, I see as a superpower. Me being a brown woman is a superpower. Me being an immigrant is a superpower. All of these things that make you different in rooms where there's a lot of sameness, I consider superpowers. So lean on them. When you are in these places, you come up with different questions and you come up with different solutions. Part of the mess of the Flint water crisis was because all the folks in charge were kind of the same kind of people. There's a scene in my book where, after the water crisis was exposed, the former administration kind of all came to my clinic, and I, as a pediatrician, I'm used to a lot of women. There's a lot of women pediatricians. I'm used to a lot of women of lots of diversities and lots of women in white coats. And all of a sudden, I was surrounded by lots of white men in dark suits. And I just started scratching my head. I'm like, I wonder if one of the reasons that we are in this mess is because we do not have enough diversity at the table. We do not have enough representation. Please, try. The only way that we are going to solve some of these big, complicated problems is if we have all kinds of people as part of them. So if you want to go into a career that's predominantly, male dominated, I encourage you to seek out mentors. There's a lot of mentors out there now, women mentors. I have been privileged to have so many women mentors in my career, started here in high school, even that I continue to lean on. That environmental club teacher, I just saw her a few months ago. She continues to be a mentor. The editor of our high school paper, when my book came out, I'm like, thank you, you taught me English, and look, I wrote a book. So stay connected to your mentors, find new mentors. The neat thing about kind of the IT connected world we're in right now, your mentors don't have to be in the same place that you are. They can be all over. I get emails all the time from folks who want to ask me a question, students in random schools and universities. And I love that. I love being able to help people. And most people do when you reach out to them. So as a woman in science or any career that's male dominated, use that difference as a superpower, and constantly push down any sense of imposter syndrome. You got this.